Hello, everybody. I am Jeffrey Davis. I am host of Radio Entrepreneurs. This is our Great Boards Today show, and I'm going to turn it over immediately to my co-host, David Rubinstein.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm excited to share with everybody the Winter 2025 inaugural edition of Boards Today. In this discussion, where we will explore the role of boards in family businesses. And can the right board help a family business preserve and grow their legacy? Having grown up in a family business, I wish that we had had a board. But here I sit today, and I'm excited to introduce to you our panelists. Steve Snyder, partner in resident and entrepreneur in residence at Gesmer Updegrove. Martin Lowenthal, macroeconomic life and financial advisor to business owners with the Bulfinch Group. And unfortunately, Scott Levy, who's a senior advisor at DLA, cannot make it with us today, but please tune in for future editions as Scott has great insights on family businesses. We're joined today by a very special guest, Ron Sanders, chairman of the board of directors at San-tron and former president and CEO of San-tron. San-tron's a U.S.-based manufacturer of RF and microwave coaxial connectors, cable assemblies, adapters for aerospace, defense, telecommunications, medical, and space applications. And having worked in the RF space a bit myself, I can tell you this is precision, mission-critical equipment that's vital to all of these industries. So now I'd like to reintroduce our co-host and entrepreneur, Radio Entrepreneurs founder and founder of Mage LLC, Jeffrey Davis. Jeffrey, I now leave the discussion with you.
Thank you very much, David. And I can't think of a better panel, all hand-picked, and for this situation. Lots of family business experience, lots of board experience going way back, hundreds of years if you add us all up. It's kind of scary. Ron Sanders, who I've known for a long, long time. Ron, I really have to start by saying you have had a textbook experience with boards of advisors, family members on boards, and transitions of boards. So could you give us all a little history first of the Sanders boards so that everybody can understand what we're dealing with and how much experience you really have?
Let me go back about 35 years. The original board was created when the founder, Ken Sanders, decided to transfer ownership of the company to his 7 children. So in around 1990, the board was 8 people. It was 7 family members, the 7 children, plus the founder, Ken Sanders. So for the first 10 years, it was a board, quiet board. It was mainly him telling everybody what's going on, what to do. All right, so he called the shots. Then around 1998, he started developing Alzheimer's. In 2000, we lost him. So now it was a board that had to do something. So we had the 7 siblings there as a board, and we found out that we really didn't know what we were doing. So we kind of floundered around for about a year and a half. Well, my father died in 2000, and our legal counsel, watching us after the first year or so, said, "You guys need help." So Jeffrey came into our lives, and that at that point we started to actually have a board. It was more of structure. Our legal counsel pushed that what a board should be, and along with the family members, the 7 family members as the board that was really struggling, he put in a board of advisors. And the board of advisors was the external group, the external intelligence and experience that helped the board of directors, which is a family, to function. So the board of advisors went on for quite a few years. There was a 2-year transition of who was president, who was vice president. That went back and forth, and we were spinning our wheels there. And then eventually the family dropped down to 5. 2 members left the company, and they sold their shares. So now we're down to 5, but it's still 5 family members that didn't have experience. really in before this that didn't have any board experience. And Jeffrey was there to fight the fights and keep things reasonable. And so that was that structure of the board. And then eventually we added a few external members. And that was a good help. That was a great help. And then eventually, probably 8 years ago, we restructured the board to 2 family members that represented the family, and then 3 additional outside members. And they had the majority vote. They had the critical thinking, I guess, and helping us get back on track if we were going off the wrong direction. So that's been the structure for the last, since 2019. Okay, and that structure is probably the best.
Before David has a question, because I was not on the last edition of the board, how did you restructure the legal agreements between how the board worked at that particular point of time? And how did you pick those members?
We did. We restructured it by changing the bylaws to show the 3 external and the 2 representatives of the family. And then it was a long process where when I retired but stayed as chairman of the board, I had a good strong search looking for the replacement for me for the president and CEO. And in that search, I had a couple of people that looked really good. They didn't work out for the president position, but that was the first person I brought on the board, the external member, who was the one that I thought would be the best replacement for me. And he's turned out to be great. I had an advisor that was in there just prior to leaving, and that person was fantastic because he was with the company for 2 years before we created this new board. So I brought him on. And then the third person was through interviews, but it was all looking at what we needed in where we were weak in different positions and what we needed. And so that's where we fill those 3 positions.
So, Ron, I'm curious. It's very interesting. I grew up in a similar situation. My dad and his 4 brothers were running a family business. We had an old saying, Rubinsteins only get together at funerals, because nobody was talking to each other. While we were alive, there was too much fighting going on in the business. How do you go through this dynamic of a family-run business and you're able to bring outsiders in to the board?
I can't tell you the process that I went through to be able to have the family members step out of that role and to allow outsiders in. It was just a long process, and it was really difficult. It was difficult, but they agreed. They finally did agree.
So, what kind of attributes or mindset were you looking for in outside directors to come in?
Well, I was looking for first of all, I was looking for somebody that had a very long history of managing a company, and I found that in that first person, somebody that had been in the leadership role in a large company and was successful and was dedicated to this position. They were somebody that was loyal to the company, that would be loyal to the company. The other person was somebody that had a lot of decision making and analytical background. Is fantastic. And then the third was also somebody that was he was in a large company, and he had a lot of responsibility, and he was successful. So I wasn't in earlier boards. I was looking for somebody that had a strong financial background. I was looking for somebody that had a very strong manufacturing background. So those are the earlier boards. In the later board, that's what I was looking for.
Steve or Martin, any follow-up questions?
Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. You said you went through several iterations, but your final statement is that this was the best format. Can you tell us why?
This is the best format. Well, in the earliest, you picture, I was a CEO, so all of the board members, all were family. All of the board members worked for me, reported to me. But then when I got into the board meeting, I reported to them as shareholders. So it was tough. It was really difficult. Your boss, they're your boss when you're their boss, when you're not their boss. So that was a very difficult thing. Plus you have the baggage of family. You probably understand the baggage of family being in everyday workings of the business. They'll bubble up every once in a while. So that was the least productive. The board of advisors had a lot of intelligence, a lot of experience to bring, but they didn't have the power. They were there to give information, but they couldn't give the final decision. This last board that we have is the board that the outside members with the greatest experience have the vote.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in with another question for you. I know you mentioned that you were looking for different areas of expertise from each of the outside board members. I'm sure our audience would love to hear what the timeline was. How long did it take you to go through the process? But the first question to me is most important. It's about chemistry. It's one thing to bring on people with different areas of expertise, but it's so critically important that there be chemistry between you and potential outside board members, and with the other board members and prospective board members. Talk to us about chemistry and what an important role that played.
This final board that I have, well, maybe the final, this today's board is probably the perfect situation on chemistry. All three of the external members sincerely want to see the company succeed. They take it personally. They'll put in any amount of time you need. They are there, and they've said it so many times that any time you need help, call, and they're there. They're available, and I've used them. I've come against a brick wall in certain situations where I could not find a resolution in my mind. I couldn't come to anything that would be a legal, best legal way to go, the best way to go for all involved, the best way to go for the company. And it just seemed like there wasn't a resolution. So there's one particular person I'd call on the board who would analyze the situation and give me advice time and time again. So the chemistry is fantastic for these guys.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, David, were you going to say something?
Oh, I had another question.
Great. Save me the time.
Okay. So, it sounded like the triggering event was your outside law firm spoke with you and said you really need to look at and consider creating a board. What was your reaction at that time, and what kind of growth do you feel you went through from that point forward?
I said, thank God we have that person to bring this to the family.
That says it all. Thank you.
And, I don't want to underestimate the power and influence of a good attorney. And if the attorney had not stepped forward initially, do you think you'd even be in business today?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because they're all good people. They're brothers and sisters, but none of them had experience whatsoever on a board. And most of them didn't have experience in a manufacturing business. So the battles, the looking in 15 different directions and not all rowing in the same direction, it wouldn't have come together.
You mind if I jump in with one for Ron on this point? Ron, my hunch is, without knowing which law firm you worked with. My hunch is that you worked with an attorney that was a business partner to you, a trusted business advisor, not just an attorney. What's the importance of having that type of person with you as you go through this journey?
With it being a family business, there were quite a few instances that were very touchy, very personal, and I was able to call that person and get advice from him. I don't know how many times, but yeah, it wasn't calling and having a cold person reading out of the law book. It was somebody that I could talk to. So yeah.
And Steve, I'm glad you followed up with that question. I'm just going to say, because I know that person's retired now. That person brought me in. I used to joke with that person that I thought he was more of an entrepreneur than he was an attorney. And his feel for business clearly was what saved the company. He just understood business. He had come out of a family business. He understood business. And you can see in those situations where that can be very helpful.
It was.
I'm fortunate to have a colleague just like that. His name's Steve Snyder.
Thank you, David.
You're most welcome.
That's very kind of you. And I don't know if we lost Martin. I assume he's going to come back. But, Ron, again, there wasn't always agreement with the family to do these things. And within reason and tactfulness, can you talk a little bit about the resistance to doing the right thing and how you work through that?
I could talk a lot about it, but we don't have that much time. There was maybe one of the family in particular that would have the opinion, no matter who I brought in to help the company and help the family grow, external help. In every case, that person would say that they really appreciate them coming in, that they trusted them, and that they appreciated everything they were doing. But within maybe a month or so, or 2 months, they didn't like what they heard from him or her, because they didn't want to hear the truth. And so they would say, that person is working for Ron. I heard that every time, and I don't know how many different people with advisors, people on the board, a whole variety, but there was so much of that they, when the person, the professional I would bring in to help keep things going, would tell them the truth. They didn't like that. So
Apologies, my computer just randomly shut down. Forgive me.
That's all right. David, I'm going to throw it back to you as we start to get towards the end of this segment, and I'll let you explain to our listeners how our format works.
Sure. We have time for another question?
Always have time. We're not that hard.
Another question. So, Ron, it sounds like, a lot of effort. You got through the knothole. You got your board established. What would you say the impact has been on the company's, not just performance, but on its culture, having this outside board?
it was a lifesaver. Really, it was a lifesaver. If we didn't have it, as we were discussing earlier, the company might not have made it.
That's and for your fellow family members who were resistant at first, if they were to look back, how do you think they would describe where you are today?
A mixed answer. I think there'd be a little bit of I could have done it better, if I was king.
Sure.
Also, but others would say thank goodness that we were able to get through all the battles and we're still here. So I think, and I think there was some would say I really appreciate all the effort that was just, major, and was a lot of years, many years, a lot of battles, but thanks for getting us through it.
Good. David? we've reached the end of our segment. I'm putting it back in your hands.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This wraps up part 1 of the winter 2025 edition of Boards Today. Thank you to all our listeners and viewers who've tuned in for this first segment on Radio Entrepreneurs. Be sure to check out parts 2 and 3 of this ongoing discussion to hear more, and click subscribe just below the video if you're on YouTube, or follow us if you're listening on one of our podcast platforms to stay up to date on all our postings as they go live. And if you're a fan of our videos, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and press the bell button. It helps immensely, and it helps to get this valuable information out to our entrepreneurial community. Radio Entrepreneurs is also active on LinkedIn, so be sure to follow our page for more business advice and discussions. And thank you so much to our panelists and our guests today.